Welcome everybody. We're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. It is Wednesday, February 9th, 6 p.m. for the Joint Economic Development Organization meeting, also known as JEDO. So, please, first item.
Item 2, roll call. Commissioner Mays.
Here.
Commissioner Cook.
Here.
Commissioner Rippon.
Here.
Mayor Padilla.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Duncan.
Here.
Council members Nager. Here. Dobler.
Here.
Heller. Valdivia Alcala. Ortiz. Emerson.
Here.
Hale. Lesser. Item number 3, action item, approval of December 8th, 2021 JEDO board meeting minutes.
The minutes from the December 8th meeting are in your packet. Assuming everybody's read through those, are there any corrections that need to be made?
Motion for approval.
Second. Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Cook, second by Councilman Dobler. Those in, are we going to do a roll call vote?
Yeah.
If you prefer. Okay, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Mays.
Here? Yes.
Still here.
Not used to roll
Cook?
call.
Yes.
Commissioner Rippon.
Yes.
Mayor Padilla.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Duncan.
Yes.
Councilmember Nager. Yes. And Councilmember Dobler.
Yes.
Item 4, a presentation of the Go Topeka quarterly update.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm excited to see some of you that I haven't seen in a while and some of you that I just saw about an hour ago. So we've had a very active first 6 weeks of 2022. So the team will get up and share some highlights of their focus areas, but just wanted to give you a couple of other comments that won't be covered throughout the presentation from the rest of the team. Today we hosted a ribbon cutting and a celebration and grand opening for the Honest Mill and the Honest Kitchen, a manufacturing partnership that you guys knew as Project Central that was approved for incentives to add 50 new jobs and about $10 million in capital investment. Those of you that were at the tour today see that there's a lot of room for growth from that company, so it'll be exciting to watch them grow here in the animal health corridor. They are a pet food manufacturing facility that is human grade and top of the line, and we'll get some samples that I think at our doorstep to be able to share with our furry friends here soon. But anyway, that was a great day, and I won't steal Ashley's thunder, but she had some stuff going on at the same time that it was kind of one of those things where we had so much going on, we had to split ways and kind of divide and conquer. So just also wanted to share some recent activities that we've had with the city team. So we'll be working with the city grant writer tomorrow to dive in a little bit more with some partnerships to apply for base funding through the state funds for a couple of projects that are very integral for infrastructure to finish out Central Crossing and to open up some other pieces of land that we've looked at for development in the past. So we're partnering with the city to put in an application that hopefully gets accepted there. And then most of you know that we are actively involved in aviation development and have had that consultant on board with us for about a little over a year now in partnership with the Department of Commerce. And so we've made a lot of great headway as far as research and understanding what the low-hanging fruit is in that industry and assessing the needs of the current businesses at both of our airports. And so I think we're making some great strides there and have about 9 meetings we had our first one today, between now and the next couple of weeks with everyone from corporate real estate brokers that specialize in aviation and aerospace to companies that are considering coming here to other airports that are best practices for us to speak with, and then developer financer partners as well that could be potential partners for hangar developments and speculative development. So just a little bit about what's gone on in the past 6 weeks from my desk, but I will let the rest of the team share more, and then we're all here for questions. So thank you. Whoops. Okay. the whole point of me getting up here really was, we have a guest with us today that most of you know, but President of Security Benefit Life, Doug Wolf, is our chair of the Go Topeka Board of Directors this year. And so he's here with us tonight to say a few words with you, and just want to remind you all that we have an army of volunteers that is highly engaged with us through the Go Topeka Board of Directors, and Doug is one of them that has been involved for quite some time, and they all are available for conversations and brainstorming sessions, and we have a great group of engaged business leaders, and Doug is leading that. So, Doug.
I thought I was going to get off easy there. Anyways, pleasure to be here. I'll be quick because the real focus is on the team, and they're a great team. And it's my pleasure to chair Go Topeka this year. Like Molly said, I've been a part of Go Topeka committee for a while, and it's amazing, what it's gotten to just over the last few years in terms of talent of staff and the things that they're doing. And it's never been more important for a business like Security Benefit to be able to attract and retain the right associates to have the right quality of life and quality of place here. And so I'm pleased to be a part of it. We'd be happy to speak individually to anybody here on JEDO, and hope to get to know you a little bit better here over the next year while I am chair. So thank you.
I think it's my turn now. Is the slideshow up and running? Okay, that's me. I'm Ashley Labon, the Business Development Manager with Go Topeka. So a little bit of what Molly was talking about is we did have a pretty unofficial site visit today. A few weeks ago, got an email or a call asking for some buildings, lands that may be available, really unofficial, not even a project name, nothing like that. So offered that to, it was a commercial real estate gentleman, and so gave that info to him. And then heard back end of last week saying that his client was going to be driving by Topeka, wanted to stop by and look at one of the options that I provided. So was able to get some info together for him, met him out there, and through conversation, it seemed like he needed maybe a little bit more land, so was able to show him a couple more options. Talked with him about our incentives, and he seems to think that that would really set us apart, and so going back to the drawing board tomorrow, sending him some more information about Topeka. So again, just one of the many things that we have going. Wanted to share with you our activity report. This is our active project pipeline. So currently these are all new business attractions. These are all RFPs that we have submitted for. They are broken out by industry. And you can see that detailed info there. Currently, there's 24 active projects. Most of these are coming from KDOC or KCADC. And then we also wanted to share, I don't know if there was any questions about that. Should I pause for questions? Okay. Also wanted to share projects that we aren't able to submit on. So really just wanted to track these to have a better understanding of the type of projects that we do have to pass on. This should help with any future conversations that we want to have regarding strategy or key industries that we want to target. Most of these are because of site or building requirements. You see the 20%, that's 3 because of acreage. It was over 300,000 for those that qualify in that. And then the square footage is usually over 1 million for buildings that they're looking for. The other ones range anywhere from they need to have certain energy requirements that we didn't meet, or buildings within, can't be within a certain range with residential, all over the board. So just wanted to keep track of those so that you guys, that we can just be aware of those. So is there any questions or anything about the active pipeline?
Any questions for Ashley? Tony?
Thank you, Mr. May. Just, first of all, thank you for your presentation. I
Yep.
appreciate everything you're doing. On this, on the percentages, can you give me any numbers on that?
Yeah, so total there's 15, and this is from 2020. I would say March probably of 2020. So from then until now. And so that's 9 that are in the site or building requirements, and then 3 for acreage and 3 for the square footage.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor? Good question.
All
Any
right.
questions for Ashley? On the phone?
Okay, up next, I think we have Trina Goss.
Hello, I'm Trina Goss, and I'm the Director of Business and Talent Initiatives with Go Topeka. I'm just going to share a couple of things that we're excited about that have been going on as it relates to workforce and talent development and retention. So on January 20th, we hosted an informational session regarding a new community resource tool for workforce that we're currently calling the Workforce Inventory website. This project has been in discussions for quite some time by a team of people, including Councilwoman Hiller, Linda Kinney, and Robert Sanders from the Topeka Rescue Mission, Mark Argenbright, formerly of the Topeka Youth Project and now with the Sunflower Foundation, representatives from the Topeka Workforce Center, Go Topeka, and the Greater Topeka Partnership teams. The vision of this project is that both the job seeking and the job seeker support networks will be totally mutually informative services with shareable and publicly available resources so that job seekers can seamlessly and successfully find the job training, job seeking support, and jobs that are appropriate for their needs. Our overall mission is to create a system so that every job seeker who wants to get in the game or feels like they've been left out of the game can get connected and get moving. Our intent is to build a website with filtering capabilities that will allow the job seeker or the job seeking support service, if applicable, to find the organization or organizations that will best meet their needs to have the success in not only finding employment, but also what is needed through the process, including resume building, interview skills, soft skills, training requirements, appropriate work attire, and so on. Employment resource organizations from all across the county were invited to this informational session on January 20th, and a survey was launched where these organizations can state the services that they provide to job seekers. The survey information will then be used to populate the website, which we plan to launch at the end of March. It will be hosted on the Go Topeka website. And I do want to give a huge thank you to Councilwoman Hiller, that I don't think she's here today, just for keeping the ball rolling on this project, because like I said, it has been a long time in the making. So we'll be excited to share the launch of this tool at the second quarter JEDO meeting. And then the next thing, after an almost 2-year hiatus because of COVID, we reignited the Top City Teachers program on January 27th. So for those of you who are not aware, Top City Teachers began in 2017 and occurs twice a year as a 3-session class for student teachers and first-year teachers. And it's meant to educate them on the community, our strategic goals, help them find ways to get involved through Forge, community events, and more, and ultimately retain their talent in Topeka. The kickoff event in January was a small group, and I thank you to Mayor Padilla for coming out and speaking to that group. But we are looking forward to our next event, which will be co-hosted with Forge, and will be a fun, informative networking event at Axe and Ale on February 24th, and you all are welcome to join us that evening. Then on March 8th, we will host a panel discussion with seasoned teachers and administrators on how to best interact with parents. We'll host a fall session as well, which will begin in early August and run through September. Any questions about either one of those?
Any questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Nope, okay, thank you. Up next, we have Rhett Flood.
Good evening, JEDO members. I'm Rhett Flood, the Executive Director of Forge Young Talent. And Forge's work in economic development focuses on the attraction and retention of young talent to Topeka and Shawnee County to live and be engaged in our community, to work or start small businesses, or to play at our local bars, restaurants, attractions, green spaces, and really everything that Topeka has to offer. Forge is excited for 2022 and is making great strides as an organization to set ourselves up for success in the future and to set Topeka and Shawnee County up for success as well. Forge is made up of a diverse, highly skilled, and passionate group of young professionals. I'd like to introduce 2 members of the Forge board to talk a little bit about what we've been working on and what we have planned for 2022. Tonight we have Chair Richard Kelly with Key Staffing and Premier Employment Solution and Chair-elect Fatima Luthi with Invista Credit Union. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Good evening. My name is Richard Kelly. I am with Forge. I'm the chair for 2022. Been involved since 2014 with Forge, back when it was Fast Forward, and I'm a local native here to Topeka, 32 years now here in the capital city, and have been with Key Staffing for 8.5 years. So really excited to be here and excited to be part of this organization. Been with interacting with Forge on a leadership level for about 1.5 years now. Some of our goals for 2022 are more just focused on continuing goals that we've already had in previous years. Those include, including reviewing and updating our strategies to reflect where we're at as an organization and what we still need to work on for 2022 and moving forward. So we're working on refreshing our brand and identity. With that comes a new website that should be launching later this month, including a new content management system, including more focus and information regarding our metrics and how to better attract folks that maybe have learned about Forge, but we haven't met the mark on getting them involved in our community and our events yet. Some of the things that we're looking at for 2022 include our brand awareness, as I'd kind of aforementioned there, and our member recruitment campaign. We're really working on trying to increase our network of members in Topeka, not only with young professionals, but just young talent in general. That also involves our collaboration with other organizations and other events and programming. So our goal is to have collaborative events with other organizations throughout the calendar year. We're looking at least 3 collaborative events with other organizations across Topeka that will help attract young talent. And with that as well, we're going to work on our diversity, equity, inclusion framework. Fatima will talk a little bit more about that, but we're going to try to incorporate that into all of our goals for 2022 and moving forward, just continuing our strategies, events, and programs. And honestly, I think we're in a really great spot right now, and I see a lot of great enthusiasm and momentum with what we're doing. Again, being local to Topeka, I'm excited to see what's going to be going on here in 2022 and beyond, but we're really trying to develop a new passion and new energy for the things that we're doing. And again, I've got Fatima Luthi with us this evening as well. She is helping work with the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion group for 2022 and is with Invista Credit Union. So I'll pass it off to her.
Oh, hold on. Mr. Kelly.
Sorry, I should have
Mr. Mayor has a
if you have any questions.
Yeah, just a quick question.
Yeah.
I'm glad to see you again, and we met each other the other day.
Yeah.
I have a question about Forge when you mentioned recruitment. Tell me, if you can, within your membership, are there any professions or disciplines that you still need to fill with your membership? You know, you try to bring all of those together.
Sure.
And I'm wondering if you identified gaps in your membership.
That's a great question. I know we're working on those metrics and working on developing a better idea of who we haven't necessarily targeted. I don't think I have the answer to that, but that's certainly, I think that's part of the work that we're trying to do with our website and developing those metrics so we can go back and look at members and see what their occupations and professions look like so we can better tailor that to a larger group of people. Because I think as you just alluded to that's what we're working on with the inclusivity that Fatima will talk about, is developing a larger group to connect to with the Topeka community rather than just a certain niche or folks thinking that Forge is more specifically for young professionals. We want it to be for young people that want to get involved and interact with our city in any way and help them grow our community as a whole. So not to answer your question directly, obviously, but those are goals that we're working on for 2022, is better identifying our demographic and expanding it past what we're at right now.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Fatima Luthi. I'm with Invista Credit Union and small business owner of The Grind Coaching and Consulting. I have been with Invista for about 7.5 years and a recent business owner with last 6. I'm really excited to be a part of Forge and be a part of the committee of the DEI. DEI committee was actually formed in 2021, and we are executing that in 2022. And there's a lot of things that we have in the works, but the main goal for DEI, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion, is kind of what Richard went ahead and spoke about on making sure that young talent in Topeka is all inclusive and they all have voices and they're all heard, because they're all important and they all bring something important and of value. And whether it's, Forge or other organizations that we tend to or want to go ahead and work with in the future. Right now, it is all about working through those matrix on how that's going to look like, and we hope that we can have that for our next presentation when we talk to JEDO members. But right now, really, we are trying to go ahead and mirror the mission of Forge and making sure that we implement that in all of our herds and all of our talent, and allow the community to come to us and share what or embrace what all of us are trying to accomplish, and just come together and work as a team and in a community to better the Topeka metropolitan area.
Questions?
Thank you.
Here you go. Good evening. Happy New Year. How's everybody? I just want to take a couple of minutes. I won't take much of your time. I just want to give you an update on what we're doing in my area. So I'm Glenda Washington. I'm the Chief Equity and Opportunity Officer, as well as the VP for Minority and Women-Owned Businesses. And so we're working in a lot of different areas at the moment, but we want to make sure that we stay focused. So I'm going to give you an overview of the DEI summit that we did last year. So last year we held a first DEI summit. We thought, okay, we don't really know what we're doing, but it'll all come together in the end, and it did. We were very pleased with the way the summit turned out, and so this year we're gonna do the second year of the DEI summit. We wanna make sure that as much as we can learn as citizens of this community to provide diversity, equity, and inclusion, that we will. And so in the fall of this year, we've been planning on the DEI Summit. Then I want to just say thank you to Leah over at the city's purchasing area. Leah and I are working on some initiatives regarding supplier diversity. And Leah has been very, very committed to making sure that there's inclusive opportunity for all. We're looking at how we can ensure vendors are informed of what is coming down the pike, what are the bidding opportunities, and how we track that success. And so Monday, actually Valentine's Day, we'll have a webinar to basically talk with the individuals that want to do business with the city, make sure that they're registered, and then also make sure that these individuals are in line with, what are the opportunities, where do I find those opportunities, and how do I bid on those opportunities. And so we're working on that. And then last year in December, I think I may have mentioned, we had a pop-up shop. We had about 25 vendors, 200 people come through the room with a pop-up shop. And we were looking at three things. We were looking at how do we provide exposure for these businesses. We were helping the businesses determine whether there was demand for their product, and then we were helping them also to generate revenue. And so we were very, very pleased with the participants in the room and the way the community embraced that pop-up. So we plan on doing something like that again, because we want to make sure that the businesses that we have in this community are positioned to grow. So we will be holding that again. There you go, outreach. So, outreach, we have hired a consultant to help us with outreach in our Hispanic business community. We're going to make sure that we leave no stone unturned. So we were looking at a couple of things. Number one, the needs for those businesses, and determining where, they really are so new, a lot of them, they don't know where to look for help. And so our consultant is working with us, the Small Business Development Center, just to make sure that they know where to find help, that if there is a language barrier, he speaks Spanish, and he can translate. We're working on a couple of things, just trying to determine where is that gap and how do we, as Go Topeka, fill that gap. So we're looking at how we address the concerns, and then how do we unplug the pipeline. Right now, there are a ton of businesses out there that have started their business, and they have no way of communicating with us. And so we're just making sure that we create sustainable opportunities for these businesses. And then finally, I'm not going to go through all of this, but I'm just going to tell you that on March the 16th, we are hosting a women's forum. And at that forum, we have a young lady by the name of Wendy Doyle out of Kansas City. And Wendy always comes to us for the past 3 years and gives us the status of women in Kansas. She basically talks about the workforce, the labor force. She talks about what are some of the barriers or impediments to women participating. She talks about the status of women. And a couple of things that she talked about that really got me was that the job loss during the pandemic will not return. It possibly will not return. Those jobs were heavily employed by women, and those women were pulled out of the workforce into the home to do tutoring for their children, or didn't have daycare and couldn't afford daycare. And so those are, she'll talk a little bit about that, go into detail. She also said one thing that I shared with our Chairs Council yesterday, infant care at daycare centers is 1.3 times more expensive than in-state college tuition. And that just blew me away. She said that, what we're looking at here is a pandemic of sorts, and we need to do something about it. I don't know if it, what it might be, but just make sure you keep that on your mind. And when someone, and I know Reva spoke to the City Council last night, but I want to make sure that you all know how critical it is when we talk about daycare, child care. It's not just something, it's your workforce that we're talking about. So thank you and have a good evening. I want to ask Lindsay to come up now. Oh, I'm sorry. Any questions? We forget that part.
Thank you, Glenda.
Hello, everyone. I'm Lindsay Labon. I'm the program manager at Plug and Play Topeka. So just kind of want to give you guys a quick update on where we're at. This is just a quick overview from our last expo that we had here in Topeka. We were able to host kind of a networking event. They were able to see the state of the community, which was really fun to rally around and just get the rah-rah feel of Topeka. We just had our selection day this past week. Selection day, just as a refresher, we start off with 100 companies. We then have 20 that present in a Shark Tank style pitch competition that we call Selection Day. So we had 20 of those. We had Canada, a lot of Israel, United Kingdom, Italy. California obviously is a big hub right there in San Francisco, the Silicon Valley area. Washington, Pennsylvania, and Iowa? Yes, thank you. Oh man, take me back to school. The focus areas that we saw in this batch were kind of in the packaging and sustainable protein, which we see quite a bit with sustainability being on everyone's top of mind. We had a 3D food printing company, which was really interesting to hear from. Gamified nutrition and telehealth were all very big. And so these focus areas reflect direct challenges that our corporations are seeing. So Hills, Cargill, and Evergy, we source based off their needs or what they want to explore. Kind of the timeline that we're on. So we just had the selection day. We had deep dives with our partners. So they were each able to choose 4 startups from the selection day that they wanted to hear more from. From those deep dives, we had 6 NDAs already in place, and we haven't even selected the batch yet. So that can kind of tell you guys how great of startups we have that are coming in. We will announce the batch tomorrow, so be on the lookout for that. You'll see kind of the companies that will be attending this batch 3. And then this kind of goes through our programming. So we're working with Lori at Go Topeka and doing a couple of webinars that will just be branded with Go Topeka's branding to kind of give more exposure to the Topeka region, even though we aren't able to have them here personally until maybe the expo. And our expo will be May 5th, which is our graduation and our big ceremony. So margaritas afterwards, because since it's Cinco de Mayo, I'm down. But I'm here to stand for any questions if you guys have any.
Any questions? Where will the margaritas be?
Yes, to be determined, but I will let you know.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, these are the startups that we've already accelerated. I forgot I had that slide.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Lori Piper, Vice President of Entrepreneurship and Small Business at Go Topeka. We have recently completed updates to our Small Business Incentive Program. We have posted them on the website and have a new URL for them. Next slide. We have retained the incentive programs or particular incentives that are on the left with a couple of minor adjustments to the marketing and architect and design incentives, removing the different caps for different size businesses. And then we have added some additional incentives that are connecting with our efforts in innovation and commercialization. So these are hopefully going to attract interest of some high growth opportunity companies in addition to some innovation startups. And we're also looking to match some of our funds with other external funding so that we can help the companies go further with the money that they have. Next slide. In addition to the application process, we're still in the process of implementing the online application process to get that fully online. We have a cover letter that's now an important part of the application process. It's where the business that's applying for the incentive makes the business case for what they're going to do with the funds and how that's going to create economic impact for us. What the milestones are that they're hoping to achieve, and what the time frame is for the projects that they're proposing. We have new requirements for new businesses so that we make sure that they have a good business plan and that they're supported by good small business support resources, so that we're not just giving them the money, we're making sure that they're connected for success. Next slide, please. For the review process, we have filled out our Small Business Incentives Review Committee and put in place a charter that was approved by the Go Topeka Board, which explains the responsibilities of the review committee and then also makes clear to the review committee what the ethics code is. Part of the review process is that we've really increased the front end portion of the review. And while some people might think that this is simply making it more complicated for businesses, it actually is really to their benefit. On the one hand, it gives us better oversight of our intended uses of funds, but it also enables us to better communicate with businesses about what our expectations are and what they should be preparing for in terms of their use of funds. And in a little bit, I'm going to talk about how that affects our budget. And then the evaluation process is very closely tied to the program objectives and the objectives for the specific incentives that the businesses are applying for. Next slide. So to give you an idea of what the structure looks like, we now have 4 application windows during the year instead of applications being processed in the order in which they come in. This enables us to have a more competitive review process and also really give the applications the attention that we want to be able to give them. And this schedule allows businesses to know what to expect in terms of what the process is like and when they can expect to have a notification. So we have a very efficient process set up between the time of the closing date for the application and when companies are notified of decisions. So it's going to be a 3-week turnaround. Next slide. And then because we are doing a closer review of project proposals up front, companies then need to go and perform on the projects for which they applied, submit their materials for reimbursement, and have a final review process before the checks are cut. And so that's going to have an effect on how things appear on our budget and affect our cash flow, because it's not that we're giving checks when we approve the projects. We're approving the projects and encumbering the funds, and then the companies have some performance terms. So I think that this is going to really help us do a really good job of making sure that we're incentivizing the activities that we want to be incentivizing, that we're tracking the performance terms, that we know how it's going to be affecting our cash flow, and also let the companies really know what they should expect along the process. Next slide. Okay, so now I'd like to talk with you about innovation and entrepreneurship. Next slide, please. Thank you. So on the innovation front, we're continuing to work on marketing the Innovation Center. We're having some really interesting conversations about that we're really looking forward to seeing come to fruition. We're working on a university engagement strategy, which is very exciting, and I think that we'll be able to have some announcements soon. And then, as Lindsay mentioned, we're working with Plug and Play to put together a webinar series, and some of the topics in that are how to understand your value proposition for new technology ventures, how to work with the U.S. Department of Agriculture on small business innovation research grants, how to put together an export compliance plan for technology ventures, and also how to work with regulatory agencies. So these are really important topics for the companies that need that information. Next slide. With entrepreneurship, one of our projects is that we're working on putting together a small business entrepreneurship and innovation ecosystem survey. So that's something that's in the works, and we're really excited to get that pushed out. We're also working on recreating our mentorship program so that that's something that's in place year-round. And I want to let you know that our Small Business Awards are coming up on May 10th so that you can get those on your calendar. Thank you.
That concludes the report. So if you have any questions for myself or the rest of the team from anything that we've covered, we're happy to address those.
All right, any questions?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody. Next item, please.
Item 5, public comment.
We do have one person signed up for public comment. They are on Zoom. It is Danielle Twinlow.
Thank you for having me this evening. I'm assuming I have 4 minutes like in council meetings, but I'm going to forewarn you I might be 15 seconds over. So my goal this evening is to discuss equitable data use so that we're all on the same page with language, because oftentimes equity and equality are used interchangeably. I just want to get a few things out of the way. So equality is what we've used as the benchmark for decades in the work towards providing the same opportunities for everyone. Well, that has been yet to happen because of racist policy and practices still within systems. We have grown to understand that it's also not simply enough. Equity, however, is recognizing that not everyone is experiencing the same circumstances or coming from the same place, and being able to provide the exact resources and opportunity to reach an equal outcome. So many of you have probably seen this image many times before of the three people standing to watch a game to give that definition. So equity is providing the same box to each person regardless of their height, a situation they have absolutely no control over or any ability to change. And those have the inherent privilege of being born to taller parental genes is able to watch the game with ease. The person who hasn't quite reached the height of the top of the fence, despite being provided the same box, is partially viewing the game from between the slates. With equity, we recognize that the limited number of boxes that we have for resources really should be given to the people who are not tall enough to see the game, providing just one box to the person who needs a bit of a boost and two to the person who needs it so that all of them are able to enjoy the game the same way. Well, recently a news article and presentations were made celebrating that Shawnee County poverty and unemployment rates have dipped to historic lows. This would be a greater celebration if we were able to say that equitably. And to clarify, I want to walk through some other information from our recent housing study and some other data pulled up from the same census guide. Households belonging to minority groups in Topeka are experiencing poverty at a higher rate than white households of 15%. Almost a quarter of both African American and Hispanic households in Topeka are below poverty level, which significantly impacts access to quality housing. So if we take that data set used in the article from the census, we can see that Shawnee County, at about every 4 years, there's a fairly steep drop in poverty rates. Currently, we're sitting at 10.5%. 2019-20, the trend's already increasing though. The closest we can get with this data set to looking at Topeka numbers is using the public school district as that indicator. And when you do, the poverty rate jumps to 16.9%. From the housing study, as of 2019, approximately 10% of the city's population is African American, 16% of Hispanic origin. Minority households are concentrated in the older areas of the city, many of which are historically redlined, declining, hazardous areas. If we look at the city data site, the poverty rate on the east side of town is disproportionately higher than the west side of town. Some census blocks in that city data rate on the east side have families in poverty at 37.8% in some blocks. And searching on the west side, we can rarely find anything out of the single digits. So we also know from the housing study that we need to be able to afford a 2-bedroom home to earn $16.81 per hour in Shawnee County, which is double our minimum wage. From the study, we know that high-paying jobs like RNs and software developers are seeing some job growth, but the fastest growing occupation is expected to be food preparation, which has a median wage of $19,000. With many of the projected top growing jobs paying $20,000 to $30,000, and according to HUD, is a burden for housing in many of these families. So I'm urging you today, as you move forward in making decisions of money and project investment, that you stop and ask a few questions each time. Are all racial ethnic groups who are affected by this decision at the table? How will this decision affect each group? How will this decision be perceived by each group? Does this decision worsen or ignore existing disparities? And based on this response, what revisions are needed in this decision? By being intentional about these decisions and working towards true equity in our community, we will build a place that everyone wants to be, that people will want to move to and people will want to stay. We can achieve this goal of liberation by removing the barriers so that everyone is thriving in a way that we really want to see for Topeka. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next item, please.
Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Okay. Well, I'll make the reminder then that we have our board meeting dates here, February 9th, May 11th, September 14th, and December 14th. And without any other business before us, wait. Oh, I'm sorry, Sylvia Ortiz. Councilman Ortiz.
Thank you. I just want to say it's very helpful, whoever has, I think, since Shawnee County has the JEDO, since they run the JEDO this year, we have all of our meeting dates already if we could have your clerk send us all an invite, a calendar invite, that's helpful to get it on our calendars. I know I talked to Matt last time. You know, we're all busy and then we run up on our calendar and, oh, it's JEDO, you know. So if we could have her do that for the whole year, that would be great, Commissioner Mays.
I think we can make that happen.
And it's very simple. We have the tools and it doesn't cost a thing. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Anyone else? All right, we're adjourned.